Assalamualaikum, Madam Shalina. We are from Group 2. So my name is Nur Syahira binti Salihan. So I would like to introduce about our report. So basically, I will start with the introduction. So cognitive psychology is one of the branches of psychology that specifically study about human internal cognitive processing, such as problem solving, memory, and all. And also, therefore, there are few theories that explain about cognitive processing, which will be explored in this report. So, this report will also explain about the cognitive processing. Firstly is the visual perception, second is face recognition, and the third one is speech perceptions. And for the visual perceptions, there are four main theories that will explain about the visual perception process. The first theory is template matching theory. Second one is features analysis, and the third one is recognition by component, and the last theory is top-down processing. Okay, so I will continue with the definitions of visual perception. So basically, visual perception is the process of interpreting visual information from the environment. So any of the environment information that we receive from the environment in the form of light. Okay. So it starts when the light enter the eyes, it travel to the brain and is processed into meaningful object. So there are few stages in visual perception. So there are few stages. So I will introduce one by one of the stages. So the first one is sensation. Sensation is the light. Everything that we see will turn into the light, and it's enter the eye and focus on the retina, on our retina. Retina is one of the components, the most important component in our eyes. So the second stages in the visual perception process is transaction, which the photoreceptor cells, which are rods and cones, will convert the light that it receive. So it's convert the light into electrical signal. And moving on to the next stages of visual perception is the transmission, which the light signal will travel by the optic nerve to the brain, and followed by the next stages, which the processing. Processing is the process that our brain interpret the signal that receive from the environment. And the last process of visual perception is the brain form interpretation, which this stage the brain form a meaningful understanding of the object. Then this stage that we will know, just now we see a tree, we see a table, yeah. And also, what are the importance of visual perceptions? Why visual perceptions are important in our daily life? Of course, visual perceptions are very important in our daily life. First, it helps us in navigation, safety and navigation. It helps us by visual perception. It helps us to judge distance, recognize hazard and avoid danger. And also, the importance of the visual perception is for our social interactions, which it helps to support reading emotion for better communication. Not only emotion, but we use our visual perception in order to read body language and facial expression. So other than that, the importance of visual perception is for daily tasks, which it support our activities, our daily activities like reading, interpreting graph, and recognizing object. Basically, we use our visual perceptions in all of our activities in our daily life. And yeah, as I mentioned before, there are four main theories that explain about visual perception processing. The process. So the first one is template matching theory, which we compare what we see to a stored template in our brain, like in the sentences like the check, the CHT or CAT, right? So we will compare the A or H in our template. So when the brain actually find the template, so we recognize the word A. Okay. And the second one is the feature analysis theory, where we break object into parts. For example, like reorganizing A as two diagonal line, the left and right, and also horizontal line. So like we basically based on feature analysis theory, we don't see an object a whole, like a whole. We see it as a few components that bring it to an object. So, and the third is recognition by component theory. We recognize object by identifying their basic 3D shape, geons. Geon is geometric ions, yeah, like cube, cylinder, and etc. So, and we also have top down and bottom up processing. So it's just a vice versa process. So top down and bottom up processing. So bottom up processing start with sensory input, and it travel up. So from the top processing, top down is relies on our prior knowledge or our existing knowledge and context to interpret what we see from. So like the bottom up is from our environment to our brain, and also from top bottom is from our brain to the what we see. So basically that's about visual perception. Thank you, madam.
Good evening to Madam Shabina. My name is Fatin Akila binti Nur Zamri, and I will be continue the presentation with next section, which is face perception. So according to American Psychiatric Association, facial recognition is the ability to learn, remember and identify faces even when we mix with unfamiliar ones, which is this skill also essential in our daily life, which it helps us to recognize our family, friends and colleagues in different settings. And moving on with why do some people struggle with facial recognition. First, brain differences, cognitive processing and memory, and then in terms of social interaction. So first, brain differences. The temporal lobe, which is above our ears, contain brain areas that are responsible for processing faces. And then brain differences also we relate with prosopagnosia, which is face blindness. And it is a neurological disorder where people recognize that they are looking at the face but cannot identify who it belongs to. And then individuals with prosopagnosia often rely on other clues like voice, hairstyle or clothing in order for them to recognize people. And then second, which is in terms of cognitive processing and memory, while intelligence does not determine facial recognition ability, visual memory plays a key role, which is studies shows a connection between short-term visual memory, remembering objects and patterns, and with face recognition. And then the study also shows that people who are good at visual memory tends to have a better face recognition skills. And then in terms of social interaction, which is people will interact frequently with others, such as in extrovert person, they tend to develop stronger facial recognition skills rather than individuals with introverts personality styles. And then exposure to diverse faces also can improve our ability to distinguish between different individuals. And then moving on with the differences between holistic recognition and feature-based recognition. So holistic recognition is we see the face as a whole unit rather than focusing on individual features. And then this method is used naturally when we recognizing familiar faces. And then for example, we instantly recognize a celebrity face without analyzing their specific features. Meanwhile, for feature-based recognition, we focus on specific parts of the face, which is eyes, nose, mouth, or also their jawline, rather than seeing the face as a whole. And then this approach also commonly used in technology, for example like face ID scanner, which maps face features to verify our identity. and then for the real world applications of facial recognition, we include with two terms, which is first security and access control, and then in terms of technology and authentication. So first, in terms of security and access control, typically it used in airports to speed up check-in and boarding process, which is through the facial recognition technology. It can help the process to move fast, and it reduce the waiting times, and then it help control access to secure the locations like office building and hospitals. And then in terms of technology and authentications, it used in smartphones, such as our Face ID to unlock our device, and then also in digital ID verifications in banking and also in government service. So that is all from me. Thank you.
Good afternoon, madam. My name is Nurvila Izzah, and now I'm going to explain about speech perception. So, speech perception, basically, it is the brain's process in decoding speech sound into meaningful words and sentences. It involves 3 steps: hearing the sound, interpreting them, and understanding their meaning. According to Hall and Lotto in 2010, our brain combines sound and visual speech cues to form units like phonemes, which is the smallest sound parts, syllables, and words. This process helps us understand speech even when people speak differently. Now, how we perceive and understand spoken language. So, when someone speaks, sound wave enters our ears and turn into signals the brain can understand. And then the superior temporal gyrus in our brain help us recognize speech sounds. For example, it can tell the difference between similar sounds like P and B through a process called categorical perception. And then after recognizing speech sounds, our brain decodes them into phonemes and matches them to words stored in our memory. This process is called lexical access, allowing us to recognize words quickly. The brain then processes the grammatical structure known as syntax and the meaning of the word known as semantics. Context also helps us fill in gaps when speech is unclear. And then all these processes work together to help us understand and respond to spoken language. I'm going to explain about the key characteristic of speech perception. First is word boundaries. Spoken words often blend without clear pauses, and only 40% of speech pauses match real word breaks. And listeners often use sound cues like stress and pitch and their knowledge of known words to find word boundaries. For example, Kessler and Butterfield in 1991 found that English speakers recognize word boundaries more easily before stressed syllables. And as for McClellan and Ellman in 1986, show that people use familiar words to separate speech. And as for Roman and De Gelder in 1997, they found that listeners use language knowledge to guess word boundaries quickly. The second characteristic of speech perception is phoneme variability and co-articulation. So, speech sounds vary due to different speakers, unclear pronunciation, and co-articulation, which is when speech sounds blend together. Despite this, our brain uses context to understand speech accurately. And according to Warren in 1970, he introduced the concept of phonemic restoration, where the brain fills in missing sounds using context. For example, if part of a word is covered by noise, we still can understand the missing sound. So, another sources of variability, phonemes variability, is co-articulation. It means that sounds influence each other when spoken quickly, but listeners can still understand speech using clues from the conversation. Next, the third characteristic of speech perception is visual cues and McGurk effect. So, visual information like watching lip movement help us understand speech, especially when sound is unclear. And the McGurk effect, discovered by McGurk and McDonald in 1976, shows how visual and auditory information combine. When people saw lips say gag but heard bab, they perceive a new sound, that. This shows that our brain blends what we see and hear to understand speech. Now I will continue with comparing different theories of speech perception. So there are two theories for speech perception. First one is spatial mechanism approach, and the second one is general mechanism approach. So the first aspect that can be compared is regarding processing system, in which spatial mechanism approach, speech is processed by a special system in the brain. And according to general mechanism approach, speech is processed like any other sound by general auditory system. The second aspect that can be compared is in terms of origin of perception, in which a special mechanism approach emphasizes that speech perception is innate and humans are born with this ability. As for general mechanism approach, it emphasizes that speech perception is learned through exposure to language. The third aspect that can be compared is in terms of categorical perception. So according to spatial mechanism approach, human perceive speech sounds in distinct categories, and according to general mechanism approach, categorical perception is not unique to speech and applies to other sounds. The fourth aspect that can be compared is multisensory integration. So according to spatial mechanism approach, it said that the Meeker effect supports a specialized speech system. And as for general mechanism approach, it said that multisensory integration is a general process for all sensory inputs. And last aspect that can be compared is in terms of speech perception in animals. So according to spatial mechanism approach, only humans have a specialized speech system, and according to general mechanism approach, animals can perceive speech like sounds, suggesting no special system is needed. Now I will continue with the face recognition and speech perception in everyday communication. So face and speech perception play a crucial role in social communication. According to Collinen in 2008, people understand emotions better when they combine facial expressions and speech tones. This helps us interpret social cues and emotional context more accurately. Furthermore, integrating face and speech cues is also important for individuals with autism spectrum disorder (ASD). According to Smith and Beneteau in 2007, found that people with ASD often struggle to process these cues, making social interactions more challenging. And misunderstanding facial expression or speech tones can lead to confusion. So by understanding these challenges, we can develop supportive strategies to help individuals with ASD.